The paddling season is coming to an end, and it's time to talk about maintenance. You've probably realized that as you've moved through the summer, your boat got used a lot. There's probably a handful of things you feel like you need to fix. I want to talk to you about the thing that needs fixing more than anything else, and I think it'll surprise you. Let's go. Welcome back, everyone. It is good to see you all. Yes, it makes me sad. The summer is coming to an end where I am in the Northeast. As you're viewing this, it'll be the end of August, the beginning of September. And for most people are going back to school. Summer vacation is over. Paddling will probably, for most people, get relegated to the weekend as opposed to throughout the week, which was a really nice thing. It was brutally hot this summer, but the water is a nice, cool place to spend time. But all of that usage is wear and tear that ends up on your boat. And the benefit, as I said, of managing fleets of boats that are used by novices, overseen by more experienced people, but still used by novices, you start to see all that wear and tear, and it's usually two things. Number two on the list that I saw, particularly in recreational kayaks, less so in sea kayaks and touring kayaks, was seat damage. I spent a fair amount of time fixing seats. But number one on the list that I want to talk about today is the handles on your kayaks. When I worked for REI, once a month, someone had to spend 4 or 5 or 6 hours repairing kayak handles. I want to talk about how to prevent them breaking in the first place, and then some repair options for them if it's already too late. So here's the thing with boat handles. They're rarely made well, and they're used way more than you would think. Like, people generally use them every time you pick up a boat or down a boat, anytime you move a boat. That is a tremendous amount of wear and tear. Let's see what they look like and how they're made. So this is pretty common. It's not bungee, it's cord. It's surprisingly thick. This is pretty stout, but at some point, that's gonna wear through. This is about as good as it gets. This is never going to break. And this is really designed for lifting a boat and nothing else. Handles like that one back there actually have other uses. I'll talk about those in a minute. But this is never gonna break, and this is actually a really good option. So back in the day, handles on the bow of a kayak looked a lot like the handles on kayaks today, the dangly ones, but the dangle part was much longer, and they weren't called handles, they were called swimmer toggles. And they were really designed so that a swimmer in the water could hold on to that toggle, and there was all sorts of play, and they could just sort of hang out there without having to hold on to the boat. Those morphed into the handles that we know today. Okay, back to me. This is super common, and I like to see that there is actually a washer on there, but a lot of wear and tear, and eventually these are gonna rip right here. You can already see that one wearing right there. To make this more of a pain, this is riveted, not screwed. It's probably cheaper in manufacturing, but harder to replace. Another great example, you can already see how this is fraying. And this is just cord, probably a little bit thicker than like accessory cord or paracord, something like that. But you can already see that that's fraying. At some point, the owner of this boat is gonna go to drag this up on shore, and the handle's gonna come right off in their hand. This is actually really nice. It's got 2 sets of screws, and they are actually screws with a big handle. This is still the weak point, but that it's doubled up is pretty good. This actually kind of looks like an aftermarket, because I've seen aftermarket versions that you can use to replace. I would have thought this would have an Old Town logo on it there if it was not aftermarket, but that's nice to see, but also not going to get used as much as a bow or stern line. This is the Pungo 120, super popular boat. I love this handle, but this is a real weak point. I do like that there are washers. I do like that these are just screws, so they're easy to replace. This is in beautiful shape, but boat is in beautiful shape, but these handles are gonna at some point fray right there. This is the classic bad luck handle, relatively thin cord through a plastic hole. This boat is going to get dragged a million feet, and then someone's going to go flying when this breaks off in their hand. Deadly Dangler. This is a perception boat. This is tied into another line, and what's going to happen, you can already see it. This is about to break. About, like 2-3 pulls, that's going to break. But this is designed to be a shock absorber, but this bungee is so old that it's not shock absorbing anymore. That is seconds away from breaking. So the actual handle material itself is okay, but the bungee that it's connected to is no good. Tsunami 145 has a similar setup. This is a newer one. So this one looks like it's okay, but we know now that that's the wear point. This is where this is going to give. So that's how that's supposed to work, which is nice. But yeah, at some point, something here is going to give. Perception, this is just a loop through 2 plastic points. I'm not sure if the 2 holes is better or worse. Wear is already occurring in there. Not surprising. So this was a replacement as well. This is already pretty worn. I'm actually not sure that this was a replacement. It matches bow and stern, but the way that it's connected looks like there was something else here, some other form of handle. But this is already pretty worn. I feel like this might have been aftermarket and it's just looped through. Yeah, not great. Here's one that's broken and was just replaced with a simple piece of string. Here's one that's broken, and I honestly think that it was not the cord that broke. I could be wrong. I think it was the handle that broke, and I'll show you why. Plastic handles have a habit of breaking as well. Here you can see they've replaced it with a piece of cord, or I don't really know what that is, but yeah, that's a pretty common break. Here's another one without the handle. Yeah, I suspect the handle on this one broke. This is a fairly common method for doing this, and if this breaks, like this is already frayed up here, if this breaks, inside this handle there's just a little knot, so you can run the line through here, knot it out here, and then pull it tight. This is not that hard to do. It's just a simple overhand knot. Relatively easy fix. If this breaks, I would say don't replace it with similar cord, buy climbing cord. Climbing cord comes in lots of thicknesses and lots of colors, and it is far stronger than this stuff, the stuff that is normally used on boats, because this stuff is super cheap, and that's why it breaks. So replace it with climbing cord is a much better way to go. This is also pretty similar. Inside here, there's a knot. This comes apart into 2 pieces. The worst thing that will happen is if this breaks, when you're separating this, you may not be able to get it to snap back together. Use a little like JB Weld or epoxy or something like that just to hold it closed. I've also seen people, because you're gonna load it this way, it doesn't really matter what's up here. I've seen a lot of people will just leave that gray piece off, but it can be attached with some epoxy. It's not a big deal. Again, replace this with climbing cord. Okay, so if you've got a boat like this is again a Pungo 120, and the handle breaks, you can buy aftermarket handles. You could also go back to Wilderness Systems and say, hey, I need a replacement handle. You could also build your own replacement and replace this part, not the rubber, but what's going inside of it, with tubular webbing also made for climbing. This is actually tubular webbing, which surprises me. It's a little bit more expensive, but a climbing-based tube is going to be a lot stronger than this. I would also go to a slightly bigger washer, but that's just me. But you can also buy aftermarket replacements for this. I'll put a link down below. Even my beloved Delta is similar to those other boats. It's a relatively thin cord connected to a bungee, so it's prone to have those same problems, but I've never broken one. Don't you want to know why? Okay, so how do I keep from breaking them? How have I never broken one on my Delta when it's such a common issue? Like just walking around this lake, I can find in the racks boats with broken handles. And the way that I keep from breaking it is that I work really hard to not use my handle. And what I mean by that is I may grab it just to get the boat off the ground, but then I'm lifting the boat by the boat. When I'm dealing with fleets of boats at REI or with students at Knowles, I have them lift the boat by the boat, not the handle. I'm saving that wear and tear. There is gonna come a time when I want that handle, when I need that handle, and I don't want the handle coming off in my hand. And I'm thinking specifically about pulling a boat up onto a beach in the surf. I wanna get out of that boat really quickly and then get the boat out of the surf zone as quick as I can. And I'm gonna do that by using the handle. And if the handle is never used, I know the handle is solid. If I'm using the handle every day, twice a day, or more than that, I have no idea, unless I'm like checking it out on a daily basis, if that handle is going to survive a hard yank in the surf zone. There are very few times that I use the handle. That's one of them. One last thing that I forgot to mention is that when racking your kayak, when putting your kayak on your roof rack, a lot of people will use the handles for bow and stern lines. This is a huge point of wear and tear on those handles. Think about a 70-mile-an-hour wind constantly pulling. It's a nightmare. So what I did when I used a car was, again, going back to climbing gear because it's really well built, a climbing sling around the bow in just a slip knot. Use that to connect the bow line or stern line to. This works great for cars. This works where the nose of the boat is beyond where it's being mounted to. But if the nose of the boat is behind where it's being mounted to, it'll get pulled off. So in that situation, you're going to have to use the deck rigging or the handle, which isn't great, but it'll do the job. Use your handle as little as you have to so that when you need it, it's good to go. If it's already broken, I've given you some tips on how to replace it. As I said, links are down below for replacement handles. You can also always go back to the manufacturer. You can make something yourself, which is really the way I think you should go. I think it's important to get in the habit of fixing the things that are wrong with your boat so that you're comfortable fixing the things that are wrong with your boat. Hey, if you found this useful, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe. About 70% of my viewers are not subscribed. In the scheme of things, that's actually a surprisingly good number, but I need 1,000 subscribers to make my year. I do about 200 a month. It's September. I don't have that many months. So if you're one of those, if you could do me a favor and hit subscribe down below, that would really be great. It would help me out. It would help me reach my goal for the end of the year, which is 10,000. If you want my books or my gear list, all that stuff is on Ko-fi or on Amazon. Also, there are links down below for that. Otherwise, I'll see you on the water.